Hey everybody, I hope and pray that you're doing well today as we come to our word from the Word. And today that word is exempt. Exempt. Now we know this time of year that kind of getting into that tax season, everybody's looking for every exemption that they can. And let's be honest, if you were living in the Israelite time here in the time of Leviticus, when these laws were being handed out and these rules and rituals and things, purification and ceremonial laws were being given, you probably would have been looking, hey, how can I get exempt from this? How can I kind of skate around this? And we know there are times where, as you go through this, that he gives great examples of how things apply differently to different people. We saw this in Leviticus chapter 11. Well, hey, depends on which animal, and depends this, how long you're unclean. You're going to see that going through these chapters. I told you all week as we look at these. Now, today, as you look at it, again, it's a very short chapter, but to look at the purification that is needed after giving birth to a child. And you will notice that after giving birth to a son, there is essentially, you combine it all, there's a 40-day timeline before the woman can be ceremonially clean again. Now, and then that's if she gives birth to a son. If she gives birth to a daughter, side note, you'll notice there's only two options. And then if she gives birth to a daughter, it's twice as long. It's 80 days. Now, I'm sure I could make a joke about that, but I won't, and we'll give you ladies an easy time with this, since y'all put up most of the work, or all the work, for giving birth. Now, here's the thing. You would look at it and you say, well, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. Why would something that God has blessed, and God has, he gave the command, be fruitful and multiply. So why all this to be pure after giving birth? And why the difference between the male and the female child? And then, wait a minute, what has to come at the end of that time? So let's look at the verses here at the end of the chapter, verses 6 through 8 first, and we'll come back and address some of those things. It says, when the days of her purification are fulfilled, whether for a son or a daughter, she shall bring to the priest a lamb of the first year as a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove as a sin offering to the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Then he shall offer it before the Lord and make atonement for her. Then she shall be clean from her flow of her blood. This is the law for her who has borne a male or a female. And if she is not able to bring a lamb, then she may bring 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons, one as a burnt offering and the other as a sin offering. So the priest shall make atonement for her, and she will be clean. Now, a couple things I'm going to say real quick. Trying to keep these videos, between 5 and 7 minutes just as we go through it. But as you look, you will see, so wait a minute, okay, she didn't sin, right? I mean, we're talking, this is just a general thing. It's not like the child was conceived in sin or outside of marriage, particularly, right? It's just kind of a blanket statement for any time she gives birth. And we may wonder why it's longer for the female than it is for the male. And there's a lot of theories out there. And let me just be honest, we don't know, right? We don't know why one over the other. But as you follow the order of these things, it's interesting. We looked at the animals. Now we're going to look at the woman, and then we're going to follow in on the things that affect man. It is following the order of Genesis 3. It's following the order of the fall. So if you want to know part of the reason why is there such an issue with the woman need to be pure and return, don't think right away. Don't think when we hear unclean in this context that it means sin. It just means that they are ceremonially, ritually unclean, and part of that comes still with the fall. Right now, childbirth was made worse because of the fall. So who knows what it might have been like before that. And you'll notice that it says, then she'll be cleansed from her flow of blood. So even after childbirth, as that continues on, that's blood was typically assigned or typically a sign of death. I mean, typically when you are losing blood, it is a sign of death. And even on a monthly cycle, it is still the sign and symbol of death every month. Now, you take that, and that's the opposite of what God had set in place, and that was life. So as you take that kind of in the background, maybe we get a little bit better understanding. And some say that, well, maybe the giving birth to a daughter was longer because now that daughter was also going to give birth to she would give birth later on. And so it was kind of maybe even with that in mind that she was going to pass on that to another generation. I think some of it too, that even in the culture that, the males were quick to get them up and get them going. But and that was more praise to have a son than it was a daughter, and that even with the daughter, it would be more bonding time for the mother. It's twice as long. So a lot of different reasons. But here's the thing: I'm gonna jump to what I was talking about, the exempt. I want you to think about that gift that we just read. What was being brought as a sin offering? Okay, and as you're bringing that, you'll notice that God makes an exception. And he says, no one is exempt, right? But you can bring, it's an exception. If you can't afford to bring the large animals, then you can bring 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons. One to atone, one for the sin offering. And did you know, one for the burnt offering and then one for the sin offering. But here's the thing I want you to notice. If you go forward to Jesus when he was born, and you remember Mary and Joseph, when they come 40 days after her purification, after her time, and she brings the poor offering, tells us 2 things. No one was exempt from this under the law, because Mary, who gave birth to a perfect son, still had to bring a sin offering. So that also throws in the face of all those who would say that Mary was without sin. But at the same time, I love the fact that God makes this exception, that he says, I know what you're able to give. And I need you to understand the holiness of God. So he makes this ritual cleanliness be a part of their everyday life and things that happen, the regular events in their life. But he says, I'm not going to cast you out because I know what you can and cannot give. Today, I think we just need to remember God knows where we are. God knows the excuses that we make. And at the end of the day, when he says it must be holy, as we talked about yesterday, be ye holy for I am holy, no one is exempt from that. God bless you. And I pray you have a great, great day.